Dearest Super Friends, this is Lady Elena from Technically a Conversation, and I've got some tea to spill. If you would like to receive that tea 1 week early, ad-free, and get some really cool stickers that are voted by you, then please subscribe to our Patreon. I really don't want to start an OnlyFans page, and your Tío Pepe from Sunland Park has already resorted to selling feet pics on the interwebs. And Lord knows what Isela will get herself into. Please help stop the madness. Lucky for you, all we are asking for is $2 a month as opposed to the $5 Tío Pepe is charging per toe. And who knows, we might throw in some feet pics in there for you for subscribing, if you're into that kind of thing, of course. But those will cost you more than the $2. Support us by logging into patreon.com/technicallyaconversation or check our show notes.
In 1986, CBS Evening News anchor Dan Rather was attacked by two men. As he was being punched and kicked, one of the attackers kept shouting, "Kenneth, what is the frequency?" As leads on the attackers went cold, this seemingly random act of violence was chalked up to mistaken identity. When REM released the single, "What is the Frequency, Kenneth?" in 1994, there was a renewed interest in the case, but there were no additional leads until the shooting of an NBC employee would bring out a confession. This week, we'll discuss who the man that attacked Dan Rather was, if this really was a case of mistaken identity, and what was meant by Kenneth, what is the frequency, on this episode of Technically a Conversation. Greetings, you're listening to Technically a Conversation, a podcast where we share an interesting topic or story with each other and hope you find it interesting as well. I'm one half of your host, Jose, and I'm joined today by my lovely co-host, Elena. How are you doing today?
Hola, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great also, thank you. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you ever read the terms of service when you sign up for a new app or streaming device or anything like that?
Negative.
One couple that didn't were Jeffrey Piccolo and his wife, Dr. Kanokporn Tongson. They ate at a restaurant at Disney Springs where Dr. Tongson died after eating a meal that had nut and dairy allergens. Now, the couple had told the server that Tongson had severe nut and dairy allergies and were assured that her food would be prepared without allergens. In fact, the couple chose that restaurant because it was billed on Disney's website as having allergen-free food. About an hour after eating, Tongson had trouble breathing and collapsed and died at the hospital, despite self-administering an EpiPen. Were you familiar with this story?
No, it does not sound familiar at all.
It's fairly recent. The actual event itself happened in October, but the details of this are just barely starting to come to light.
Oh, wow.
Now, the couple was initially told that they could not sue Disney because the couple had signed up for a Disney Plus trial in 2019. And by agreeing to the trial, they pretty much waived all rights to sue the company and its affiliates in perpetuity because of a term they agreed to in the terms of service.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's fucked up, huh?
Yeah. That's smart.
Well,
I mean, smart for Disney.
Well, maybe, but as you probably imagined, Disney got a ton of backlash because of this, and they backpedaled on their initial statement saying, quote, "At Disney, we strive to put humanity above all other considerations. With such unique circumstances as the ones in this case, we believe the situation warrants a sensitive approach to expedite a resolution for the family who have experienced such a painful loss." So they're doing the right thing and will allow the lawsuit to go through. But either way, that's super fucked up, right? That something buried in the terms of service that no one ever reads because they're long as fuck, and it feels like you have to be a lawyer to understand, would allow a billion-dollar corporation like Disney to weasel their way out of a lawsuit.
Well, yeah, of course it is fucked up. I wouldn't want to be on that end. And I don't know. I think I'm stubborn enough to want to pursue, even if they would have thrown that back in my face. Oh, well, in 2019, you did this and you waived all your rights. I think I'd still be stubborn enough to pursue the lawsuit, but I think that would probably sway other people to just be like, oh, well, fuck it. Too bad, I guess.
Yeah. And also, it kind of makes you wonder how much these companies actually know about us. Because like apparently Disney was like, this couple actually signed up for a trial of Disney Plus. Oh, and it was on this guy's PlayStation 5. Got these motherfuckers. We got them. We got them.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah, like how would they even know that? I mean, I don't know. Maybe when they bought the tickets to the Disney website, because they were even saying that when they bought the tickets to go to this theme park, there's also like an arbitration clause that's in there that, oh no, you can't sue. It has to go to arbitration.
That's crazy. I've heard of stories of people actually reading these terms and conditions on different things, and they've gotten money out of it because it's like hidden somewhere within the thing. And so if that person just happened to read it, they won some kind of, I don't know, amount or whatever. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I have actually. And it's kind of funny that you say somebody actually taking the time to read them. Jeffrey Fowler from the Washington Post stated that Twitter's terms of service are 4,500 words long. And that's actually on the short end. Facebook's are 12,000 words. And Jeffrey actually tallied up all the terms of service just for the apps that were on his phone, and it totaled nearly 1 million words. That's twice as long as War and Peace.
Who has the time?
Exactly. If a person would read the terms of service for all the websites an average American visits in 1 year, just 1 year, it would take 244 hours to read all of them. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Hueva.
I know.
Que hueva.
Now, if you were to just like power through it and read them 24 hours a day, that would only take you 10 days of reading nonstop.
Only.
Now, if you decided to maybe only dedicate yourself 8 hours a day to reading the terms of service, it would only take you 30 and a half days.
No thanks. No, thank you.
Yeah, and actually one of the theories that Jeffrey came up with is that they make these so fucking long, not necessarily because they want to fuck you. Well, I mean, they definitely do want to fuck you.
Yeah.
But they figure if they make these so fucking long, nobody's ever going to fucking take the time to bother reading them.
Right.
And they can sneak in bullshit like Disney that, oh, well, you can't sue us because you signed up for a trial, a 30-day trial of Disney Plus on your PlayStation 5. Now you're fucked, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, that sucks, man. But, well, you said it was fairly recent, so you don't know what's happened with the lawsuit?
I don't. I just know that when this event took place, it was in October, but all this just barely came to light within the past week.
Oh, okay. I've been seeing a lot of people boycotting Disney, but I didn't know why. And it could be because of that. I don't know.
Yeah, it was probably because of this, because this was trending. A lot of people were talking about how fucked up it was.
Interesting.
Enough fucking around, Elena. Ready to get started?
Always.
Great. Let's get started. The following is from a New York Times article by Frank Bruni, a Rolling Stones article by Brina Eric, a Rocky Smith article by Rocky Smith, and a Tampa Bay Times article. No author listed. Links in the show notes.
Show notes.
On October 4th, 1986, CBS Evening News anchor Dan Rather was approached by two men on Park Avenue in New York City. One of the men shouted, "Kenneth, what is the frequency?" and punched Rather in the face. Rather ran into a nearby apartment building where the two men punched and kicked Rather to the floor while repeatedly shouting, "Kenneth, what is the frequency?" The apartment doorman broke up the assault and the attackers fled. Rather was taken to Lenox Hill Hospital and was treated for minor injuries. The following day, Rather reported that he was mugged and had no idea who did it or why he was attacked. The strangeness of this incident made Rather the butt of late-night TV jokes and even inspired Game Theory and REM to write songs based on the incident. The attack remained a mystery for 8 years until William Tagger was arrested for fatally shooting an NBC employee in 1994. How are these two incidents related? And what is the frequency, Kenneth? What the fuck? That almost sounds like it was written by AI, right?
Yeah.
Before we go over all the deets, were you familiar with the story, Elena?
No, I've never heard of this before.
Okay, good. This one is going to be a short one because there really is not a lot to this story, and I'm kind of behind on editing. And even though it's a shorty, it's got plenty of weirdness, and the details are kind of crazy. So hopefully you all enjoy this one.
It's a shorty, but it has plenty of girth. I'm just kidding.
Yep. All right. So Dan Rather was assaulted on a Saturday. And even though he was taken to the hospital and it was reported that he received some welts to the head, he was back on the news on Monday, October 6, 1986, where he talked about the attack as it had already made nationwide news. And I have an audio clip of him discussing it on that night's CBS Evening News. The audio quality was not the best. I tried cleaning it up the best that I could, but I think that it's still very intelligible.
All right.
In closing tonight, a personal note, if I may. Over the weekend, as some of you may have already heard or read, I was assaulted with violence on a Manhattan street. Why and exactly by whom remains unclear, and it may never be determined. Perhaps it was just another one of those bizarre and frightening incidents that seem to happen from time to time in our country and elsewhere. I do know that I was luckier than many other Americans who've been victims of violent crime, and for that I'm very thankful. Aside from a little stiffness and some bumps and bruises, I'm feeling fine. I just want to thank those who came to my aid and all of you who have written or called to express your concern. We'll see you here again tomorrow night. Good night.
Now, even though Dan Rather doesn't mention Kenneth or what is the frequency, a New York Times article from Sunday, October 5th does include that line when it reported on the incident. And as sad as it is to hear anyone being the victim of a random act of violence, the thing that stood out in everyone's mind was that the assailant yelled as he punched and kicked Rather, "Kenneth, what is the frequency?" That seems so random, right?
Very random. But these channels operate on a frequency like a radio station or no?
The TV news channels?
Yeah. Or it doesn't work the same way?
No, they actually do.
Okay.
So is that what you think that maybe he might have meant when he was punching him?
I think so.
But where did Kenneth come from?
I don't know. He's probably... Because you said that this guy later shot somebody from an employee from NBC.
Correct.
So he maybe might have worked there before. Maybe he knew somebody that was named Kenneth, and he was probably suffering from some kind of mental disability like schizophrenia or I don't know. That's my best guess.
And that's as good of a guess as it can be. Some of the sources mention that Rather became the butt of some jokes by some late-night comedians for a few days following the event, but I was not able to find any recordings of said jokes on YouTube.
That's kind of fucked up, though.
Yeah, it is.
I'm just wondering how they would have made fun of that.
I don't know. I mean, it's a different time.
Yeah.
It's 1986. You're wearing neon-colored clothing. You've got big hair. You're doing a ton of cocaine. I mean, a ton of cocaine. You're wearing a bandana for some reason. It's kind of hard to imagine what was going on through people's mind at that time. I mean, you and I were kids, so it's hard for us to imagine.
I was 3, yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard for us to imagine how people thought at that time, like what the national zeitgeist was at that time.
Right, yeah.
Now, a few days after the incident, that's really all we know. And that's all that we would know for almost a decade. At that time, people kind of had their theories as to why Rather would have been attacked, but I think that the most prevalent theory was that it was a case of mistaken identity. Dan Rather's name is obviously not Kenneth, so the person that attacked him must not have known who Dan Rather was. What is the frequency is a part that makes zero sense. While the story would eventually fade away as no arrests or leads into the attacker surfaced, the phrase, "Kenneth, what is the frequency?" continued to live on. In 1987, a year after the attack, Game Theory released a track called Kenneth, What is the Frequency? On their album Lolita Nation. And I had never heard Game Theory or that track before, but I checked it out while researching this episode, and Rolling Stone very generously called this a song. For me, I don't think it's really a song. It's nothing more than an album intro that starts off sounding like a band warming up and is followed by random sounds and what sounds like a woman saying random things on the phone and ends with someone asking, "Kenneth, what is the frequency?"
Oh, okay. Are you going to play us that clip or no?
No, because I don't want us to get taken down from YouTube.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out on my own then.
I can play it for you after we're done recording.
All right, cool.
Now, REM's song, What's the Frequency, Kenneth, from their 1994 album Monster, is actually kind of a banger. At first, I didn't think that I had ever heard this song before, but it's one of those songs that I've heard countless times, but never knew what it was called.
That's me in the corner. No, just kidding.
Yeah, that's probably like their biggest banger for sure. No, it's not that one. No.
Okay.
Apparently, the REM song has nothing to do with the actual attack, but when they released the song, it did bring awareness to the since long forgotten attack on Dan Rather. In fact, there is a video from 1995 where Dan Rather joins REM on stage to perform What's the Frequency, Kenneth on the David Letterman show.
No way. That's cool.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool. And Dan Rather's singing is worse than I could have ever possibly imagined.
Pobre.
Yeah, poor guy. And it seems like he was super offbeat, but I thought it was really cool and really endearing of Dan Rather to even try to perform this song with them.
Yeah.
Especially since he was 64 at the time that he performed this.
Wow. Yeah, I had to Google him real quick too, because I know I've heard the name Dan Rather, or Dan, is it Rather or Rathers?
It's Dan Rather, but I was always under the impression that it was Dan Rathers.
Yeah, me too. Okay, this is probably a Mandela effect. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
The S got dropped off at some point. I had heard of him and I knew that he was a news anchor, but I couldn't picture him. So I had to like Google him real quickly. And I was like, oh, okay, I know who this guy is.
Yeah, he did the evening news for like decades. You know, I'm not even going to attempt to guess, but he literally did the evening news for decades.
He's NBC also, though, right?
No, he's CBS.
Oh, okay. Plot twist.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a plot twist a little bit later. Not
Okay.
quite a midnight Shyamalan moment, but there will be a little bit of a plot twist.
All right, cool.
And
We're back. Just kidding.
no, as of August 22nd, 2024, Dan Rather is still alive and is 92 years old. I know that Isela and I were kind of questioning during the JJ Arms episode if he was still alive, and I checked, and as of August 22nd, 2024, JJ Arms is also still alive and is also 92 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I know we're kind of laughing. It's like, oh yeah, and he's still alive. Well, actually, I think he's alive. I actually didn't research that. So.
I thought JJ Arms had passed, but I guess that's also a Mandela effect.
Life is just a Mandela effect in general, I feel.
This is true. Very true.
Yeah. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, who do you think will be the last man standing? Put it in the comments and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, my dudes and dudettes.
ABC, always be closing.
Now let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break. And when we return, we'll talk about the shooting at NBC Studios that finally brought us some answers as to why Dan Rather was attacked in 1986.
Pack your body bags. We're going on a slaycation. Tim, what's a slaycation?
A slaycation is a murder or mysterious death that happens while you're on vacation.
If you like to mix humor with horror and travel,
Join me, Kim Davis,
And me, Adam Tex Davis.
and me, Jerry Colbert,
as we look at the craziest slaycations that will have you asking, what the F is wrong with people? You can find Slaycation on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Just remember, getting away can be murder.
And we're back.
We're back.
Did you attack a very still alive Dan Rather during our break, Elena?
No, I did not.
What about a very still alive JJ Arms?
I would not do that to a 90-whatever-year-old. No. I mean, I wouldn't attack anybody in general, so.
Yeah, they're both 92 years old. And again, put in the comments, who do you think will be the last man standing?
That's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, sorry. That's kind of our bag here, though. We kind of fucked up.
It's true. Very true.
Did you write any songs about Dan Rather's attack?
No, I didn't, but I now regret that I didn't do that.
We all regret not having done that. We had like 3 minutes to write a song.
I know.
What are your thoughts so far?
Well, just that, what I said, that I think it was somebody who was mentally ill, maybe going through some kind of episode. The frequency had something to do with the frequency of where they produce the news. I don't know. Maybe a former employee. Same thing.
All excellent theories. Now, Dan Rather's attack would have probably remained a mystery. It would have never been solved had it not been for an event that happened on August 31st, 1994. On that day, William Taggart tried to force his way into the NBC studios in New York and shot and killed Campbell Montgomery, a Today Show stagehand, when he confronted him. Taggart allegedly had an assault rifle because America, and he tried to shoot into the Today Show studio at Rockefeller Center. Montgomery was able to point out Taggart to police, who overpowered and arrested Taggart. Taggart pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. That was not the only thing that Taggart confessed to. He admitted to being the person that attacked Dan Rather 8 years earlier, but this incident was not officially investigated as the statute of limitations, which was 5 years, had already expired. Case closed, right?
No. Well, did Rather ever confirm that that was the same guy?
Funny that you bring that up. Actually, there were a couple of discrepancies between Dan Rather's story and the story that William Taggart told. And we're not saying that either person was lying, but we do have to point the discrepancies out. If you recall, Rather stated that he was attacked by 2 men. Taggart confessed to have acted alone. Dr. Park Dietz, Taggart's psychiatrist, did state that he believed Taggart was almost certainly Rather's attacker. Rather later admitted that the incident happened so quickly and he was confused, so the second man that he saw might not have had anything to do with the attack. Rather also picked out Taggart from a set of pictures presented to him by the New York Daily News. When he saw Taggart, Rather said that there was no doubt in his mind that this was the person that attacked him. Now, there's the name Kenneth, which Rather stated that his attacker kept on yelling as he attacked them. Dr. Dietz stated that Taggart did know who Rather was and attacked him after running into Rather by chance and recognizing him. Dr. Dietz also said that he thinks that Taggart never called him Kenneth, and Rather admits to not being certain that that was the word that he heard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was he certain of? That he got mugged or he got whatever, beat up?
Yeah, that's the thing that he was certain of. And there was a police report and he did get medical attention for his injuries. So we do know that he was attacked.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, honestly, in Rather's defense, I think that when you're being attacked like that, I think that you're more interested in like self-preservation and, avoiding getting your fucking ass kicked. And you're not really paying attention to every minute detail of what's happening.
Yeah, you're right.
And also, I think at that point, it had been 8 years that had passed. So I have a hard time remembering what I did yesterday, let alone what I did 8 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was able to pick him out of a picture lineup.
That is true. And that does lend a little bit of credibility to both of their stories.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 possible explanations to 2 parts of Rather's story. Now we are left with the most important, or at least the most interesting part. What the hell did Taggart mean when he kept on asking, what's the frequency? Taggart claimed that the TV networks were monitoring him and beaming messages into his brain, and he was trying to discover the frequency that NBC was using. This is what led him to try to force his way into the NBC studios in New York, leading to the death of Campbell Montgomery. He also confessed that was his motivation for attacking Rather in 1986, to determine the frequency CBS was using. New York District Attorney Robert M. Morgenthau wrote an opinion in the New York Times stating that Taggart suffered from paranoid schizophrenia and had long believed that the television networks were bugging his home in North Carolina. So your guess was pretty spot on that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for sure. As soon as you told me that he was asking what the frequency was, I'm like, oh, this guy probably has schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Poor guy. He's got a mental disability, illness, whatever it's called nowadays.
Yeah. Taggart was sent to Sing Sing in 1996 on charges of manslaughter and criminal use of a firearm. And although Sing Sing sounds like a charming and delightful place, it's actually a maximum security prison in New York, where he underwent psychological counseling. Taggart was released on parole in 2010.
Wait, so he went to a prison and not a mental institution?
That's what it said here, because one of the sources I used, it said that he went to Sing Sing, I was like, what the fuck is Sing Sing? Is that like a fucking karaoke bar or what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
So when I Googled it, it said that it was a maximum security prison. Now, I don't know if prison and jail were mixed up because I know that that's one of your pet peeves, but nobody else cares. Prison and jail are interchangeable to, I would say, 99.8% of all people.
It is not the same thing.
It might not be, but everybody sees it the same and nobody really cares.
Prison and mental institution. I kind of feel like his lawyer should have pled
Insanity.
insanity. Yeah, for sure. And he should have gone to a mental institution. But the fact that this Sing Sing place was giving him treatment, I mean, I don't know how good the treatment would have been there.
I don't know, but I mean, he was at least healthy enough that he was able to
That they granted him parole.
That they granted him parole and that he was able to be out back in society. Now, I know that there were a lot of stipulations that were put in place, like, him not being able to drink, not being able to take drugs.
Oh, yeah.
He had like a monitor on him so that they knew where he was at all times. He had to check in with a parole officer once a week. So there were a lot of stipulations.
I'm assuming medication, and he had to continue taking medication so that he could function normally.
Probably, yeah. He was probably put on antipsychotics to stop some of the hallucinations that he was experiencing. So I'm sure that's true as well.
Wow. Okay.
So now that you know the full story, what are your thoughts on this incident?
Well, I feel bad for both victims, especially the one who lost his life and, their families and what they had to go through. And I hope that that guy got the treatment that he needed and deserved to get him, better. But do we know anything about him now? Like, is he still alive?
I want to say that I saw on one source, it wasn't a source that I used. And again, don't quote me on this because I tried to fact check it and I couldn't. But I want to say that when I was going through sources to try and get like the full picture, it was saying that Taggart had died.
Oh, wow.
But when I tried to find that source again, I couldn't. And I couldn't find any other sources that actually also claimed that he died. So I'm not too sure about that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, then Rathers and J.J. Arms outlived him. No.
Yeah, for sure. Well, actually, we don't know because I couldn't find anything that proved or disproved it. And I think that I read somewhere that he had died, but I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very interesting.
And I personally think that it's really sad for both Rather and Campbell, who were attacked, and also for Taggart. He was obviously a man that was mentally ill, and had he had access to mental health care to begin with, both incidents could have perhaps been avoided.
Yeah, true.
And it's really sad that he had better access to a gun than treatment.
That is pretty sad. But what we see a lot with these people that are mentally ill is that once they're taking medication and they're feeling better, they stop taking the medication because they're feeling better. And if nobody's holding them accountable, then... And you know what? Sometimes there are people trying to hold them accountable, but they're feeling better, so they're not going to take it anymore. And then everything rolls downhill from there, unfortunately. So it's a difficult situation for sure.
Yeah, that does sadly happen too many times.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, part of Taggart's condition for parole is that he is subject to regular drug and alcohol tests. So let's enjoy something that Taggart can't. Some fine whiskey. How does that sound to you, Elena?
That sounds good. Good segue there.
This week's whiskey pick is a bottle that I recently came across. It's Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel. And this one has been on my list for a while now. And like Timo Cotipelto, I was hunting high and low for this bottle since I heard about it. And I'm pretty sure that I let you try the Elijah Craig small batch the time that you came over, since it's one of my favorite small batch bourbons.
Mm-hmm.
The Toasted Barrel takes the small batch and finishes it in toasted new oak barrels to give it a little extra toasted, smoky flavor. Elijah Craig describes the tasting notes as being big, rich, and complex. Delightful spice and pepper notes fade to milk chocolate with just a hint of smoke. And I do get the spice and chocolate notes, but to me it's more of a dark chocolate taste than milk chocolate, as well as the taste of smoke.
Well, it sounds delicious. And yes, we did take Elijah Craig.
Yeah, I for sure would have let you try that one because I do love the small batch very much.
It was, I believe, our second or third tasting. So
Yeah, so this one, it essentially is a small batch, but it's like elevated. It's reached its final, like the final picture of the Animorphs. This is what it turns into.
animal morphs. It sounds delicious.
It is. And hopefully I'll be able to save some for you so you can try it. I did say that I could taste some smoke on it, but it's not as smoky tasting as Old Forester and Woodford Reserve. I feel like those are the kings of smoky flavored whiskey, but this one has a different sort of smokiness that to me resolves itself a little sweeter and brighter, though it's not as sweet or bright as Penelope Toasted. I would actually put the Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel between Old Forester 100 and Penelope Toasted if I was ranking them, but I think that I like Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel a little more than the Penelope. I think that this is due to Penelope's age. It's only 5 years old according to its age statement, and even though Elijah Craig doesn't have an age statement, it's believed to be aged at least 9 years, and I think that extra time takes away a lot of the brightness that's found in the Penelope. Although I will say that I never noticed the brightness before until I put it next to the Elijah Craig.
Oh, okay.
Coming in at $58, it's not cheap, but it is cheaper than Penelope, which was recently in my top 5, which costed $67. And I think that Elijah Craig has dethroned Penelope for me. The bad news, though, the Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel is a limited release and isn't available year-round. From what I've been able to find online, it looks like it typically comes out in August each year. So I will be trying to buy a backup bottle next time I go to the store. And it is a buy recommendation a huevo. If you're price sensitive, I definitely recommend you check out the regular Elijah Craig small batch, which is a bargain in comparison at $30. The Toasted Barrel is twice as expensive. Always keep that in stock because it's cheap and delicious. And if you like the small batch, maybe give the Toasted Barrel a shot if you can still find it. So who is this Elijah Craig fellow? Do you know who he is, Elena?
You probably told me about it, but I don't remember.
You gave me a look like, how the hell am I supposed to know who the hell that is?
I know.
Well, it says in the bottle, and I'm sure I told you when you were here, that he is the father of bourbon. Now, Elijah Craig was actually many things. He was a Baptist preacher, he was a teacher, and he was a businessman. And he actually built the first paper and wool mills in Georgetown, Kentucky. The reason that we're talking about him today, however, is because he was also a whiskey distiller. The history and legend and where they meet is kind of murky. The reason he's known as the father of bourbon is because he was the first distiller to age his whiskey in charred oak barrels in 1789. How he came upon this, it's not really known. Some legends say that he would store his whiskey in former sugar barrels and was impressed with how the charred oak improved the taste. There's an apocryphal story about there being an accidental fire in one of the rick houses that charred some of the barrels and changed the taste of the whiskey inside. However, he came upon this discovery. He knew that he had a really good thing going and actually worked at perfecting the charring process by trying different techniques and char levels. One thing that is often left out of the Elijah Craig story is that he was an enslaver and relied upon the hard work of enslaved people to run his distillery and other businesses. Heaven Hill, who now owns a distillery, is actually doing something really amazing. Now, it's easy for a company to say, well, that's just the way that shit was done back then. We've learned from our mistakes and it won't happen again. Well, Heaven Hill is actually going the extra mile. And this is what I actually really admire about them. They've made it a mission to uncover the identities and roles of the slaves that worked for Elijah Craig and make their contributions to the bourbon industry and the legacy of their families known.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's something you don't really hear about, huh?
No, never. That's cool.
They are working with the University of Kentucky's Commonwealth Institute for Black Studies, Central Kentucky Slavery Initiative, and other organizations to make sure that their contributions aren't forgotten and that the history that is taught is more inclusive and accountable. Hopefully, they also made some reparations to some of the families, but at least they're doing something to try and right some of the wrongs of the United States past. And in Heaven Hill's defense, they didn't acquire the Elijah Craig brand until 1976. So the fact that they're even doing anything at all says a lot about the company and their values, at least in my opinion. What do you think?
For sure. And where did you get this bottle? Specs or Total Wine?
I did acquire this bottle at Specs,
Okay.
and it was $58. And it is super delicious. It's worth every penny, especially if it's really a 9-year bourbon, because that is kind of, I don't want to say it's old. I mean, you can certainly find older ones, but $58 for something that is 9 years old is a pretty good value, I feel.
Yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to add?
No, nothing else.
All right. Well, since Elena said nothing else, special shout out to our super homie, super friends, Sophia, Natasha, OG Eric, Angie, Eli, Madtown Charity, Katya, Victor, Christine, Josh, and Eric J., who claims that he is AI.
He does?
Yeah, he put that on our Patreon.
Oh, okay.
He put Eric number 2 is AI.
Okay. Well, thank you, AI Eric.
We appreciate you. If you want to be super cool and help support the show, get the episodes a week early and ad-free, get your name shouted out on the show like AI Eric, and get some stickers from us a few times a year, check us out at patreon.com/technicallyaconversation or check the show notes. Best of all, it's only $2 a month, baby. You can't even buy cigarettes or a bottle of Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel for that.
Not even close.
We hope that you enjoyed the show and you join us again next week. If you're enjoying the show, leave us a review, tell a friend, and subscribe wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Yeah.
Follow us on the socials at GreetingsTAC. Email us at greetingsTAC@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 915-317-6669. If you have a story of when you assaulted a beloved evening news anchor to share with us.
I hope you did not assault anybody. But if you did, let us know.
For sure.